Thank you, everyone. I'd like to move us on to our next session, which is the Topical Slots session, and invite Hugh Thomas to come and join me. We've got two speakers in this session, and we will be taking some panel questions after Joe Paul. So do think about what you would like to ask and put them onto Slido. I'm joined by Hugh Thomas. Hugh is the chairman of the Equine Fitters Council. He has a huge amount of sports experience as an Olympic event rider and a course designer. He took on the role of badminton horse trials director from 1989 to 2019. He's a past chairman of the BEF and the FEI Eventing Committee. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen. Most of that background is completely irrelevant to what I'm about to talk to you about. My only thing as a past master of the Worshipful Company of Saddlers, I've always said I've absolutely no experience or knowledge about making or indeed really fitting saddles. I have, unfortunately, a very great deal of experience of sitting on them and a good deal of experience of falling off them. However, what I'm here for today is to launch to you, and in fact launch, as it were, outside the saddlery industry, launch to the equine public, the Equine Fitters Council and its associated Equine Fitters Directory. I'm just going to give you a very high-level overview today of the new initiative from the two livery companies, the Worshipful Company of Saddlers and the Worshipful Company of Lorrimers, who together put together a working party that went on for some years of diligent hard work, consultation within the industry, not always easy, as most of you will understand. But in the end, we've got something that has been supported in concept and now in realization by all of the relevant organizations involved in the fitting of what I generically still call TAC. So what we're launching is an independent directory of equine fitters. Equine fitters mean saddle fitters, bit fitters, bridle fitters, harness fitters. It doesn't mean people who sell you pretty rugs or similar. We are in the business, particularly of being independent, because we're set up by the two livery companies. We do not have any axe to grind. We don't have any commercial interest in this. And our objective is overwhelmingly to pursue the interests of the welfare of the horse. Very interesting, referring back to Rowley's talk about social license this morning. I could go on for some time about this, but one of the things we are trying to do is to bring to this aspect of the horse industry, the fitting part of the horse industry, an understanding of the importance of maintaining that social license. Correctly fitting equipment on a horse is essential to the horse's welfare. And without the perception of the horse's welfare being good, public acceptance of the riding of the horse will deteriorate. And so we regard this very much as part of that particular exercise. We're looking at both the physical and, dare I say it, the mental well-being of horses. So the fitting industry today is a pretty good minefield. It consists of trained and untrained people, registered and unregistered people, independent and highly specialist people, insured and uninsured people. There are a great many very good fitters around who belong to excellent member bodies and representative organizations, but there are an increasing number of those who don't belong to any of them. So what is the case for regulation at all? Voluntary regulation, we believe, has the opportunity to lift general standards of practice so that people aspire to come up to the level of the best. It drives advances in training and in courses and training providers. It gives professional or paraprofessional status to those who are involved in it. It aids cohesion and communication within the industry. It builds trust and demand. The Equine Fitters Council, sorry, lost my place as usual. As I said, intended to be an independent authority, it will set and evolve the standards, and a great many of those are already in place. They're there. Occupational standards, for instance, professional standards are there, so that when anybody joins, they will be signing up to compliance with them. And the directory, which is the mechanism of delivery, is intended to be a trusted resource. Listings on it will be audited. People obviously will, entirely digital process, but people will be putting forward their qualifications. They will be checked, their insurance policies will be checked, and so on, so that the users of the directory, people who want to find a fitter, can have confidence that what appears in that directory is true and is correct. So the directory itself will have a number of categories on it. Qualified fitters, that means somebody who has undertaken an independently outside accredited course. These courses are normally at the moment accredited by LANTRA or the City and Guilds. There will be another category called fitters, and this will, particularly in the early time, include a lot of people who are fitting tack to horses but may not have any qualifications. There are a lot of people who have the so-called grandfather rights. They've been doing it for ages. And of course, they will be able to go on doing it. They'll still have to show they're insured, and they will still have to undertake continuous professional development every year, however long they've been practicing for. We will also list training providers, the very important people who actually provide the courses. There are two types of training providers. There are the independent vocational training providers, and of course there are those who actually train somebody who just works for a particular brand. You can be perfectly well trained to just fit a particular brand of saddle, as long as your customer knows that's what you are trained to do and doesn't think that you are an expert across the board. The applications to go on the directory will open at the beginning of April, and we now have to put a few more steps in order to get to where we want to be in a year or two's time. We've got to appoint some independent expert further directors. At the moment, the directors of the council are members of the Lorriners Company and the Saddlers Company. We are actively recruiting people to come and bring expertise of the wider horse world to this body. It's a voluntary body, it's a voluntary board with, of course, a very small professional staff. And the people we are going to recruit will not come as representatives of any particular organisation of which they may be members or directors. They will become as independent experts within the equestrian world. We are launching here, and as the summer goes on, to the general public, the horse-owning public, and the professionals. The veterinary profession, for instance, is an extremely important target for us, so that in time, we very much hope that when a vet sees a horse and suspects that there may be something wrong with the equipment, they will be able to use the directory to refer the client to a properly qualified person to actually check up on the fit and so on of the saddle. We're committed to ongoing review and improvement as we go forward, and very much to a partnership with the fitters, with the various organisations in the equestrian world. Thank you very much indeed.
I'd now like to ask Joe Paul to come and join us. Joe is the president of RAMP, which is the Register of Animal Musculoskeletal Practitioners. Joe's worked with eventers, point-to-pointers and dressage horses. She qualified as a chartered physiotherapist and worked in the NHS, particularly with sports teams, including Edinburgh Rugby, soft spot there, and the British Equestrian Vaulting Team. And she then combined her skills with horses and people to establish a rehabilitation facility. She's lectured, provided clinical education and examined students completing veterinary physiotherapy MSc degree, and has advised World Horse Welfare as well. So, Jo.
Your Royal Highness, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, grateful for the opportunity to come and talk at the National Equine Forum today. The Register of Animal Musculoskeletal Practitioners, or RAMP, is a voluntary regulatory body which encompasses the professions of chiropractic, osteopathy and physiotherapy in animal care, which are collectively known as the musculoskeletal or MSK allied professions. RAMP maintains and publishes a competent voluntary register of this workforce of allied professionals within the veterinary healthcare sector. Its main objectives are protecting animals and the public by setting educational and professional standards for those on the register and ensuring these standards are maintained. Also, to maintain the integrity and the development of the three professions in animal care. The aim being to provide the same level of care to animals as would be expected in the statutory regulated human healthcare sector. RAMP is an independent organisation that receives no external funding, is run by a voluntary council of MSK practitioners, veterinary advisors and laypersons who are all passionate about providing safe and effective MSK care to animals. I would like to ask the audience, which of these practitioners would you trust to treat your horse? On the left, a RAMP registrant, a veterinary physiotherapist. RAMP do the due diligence for you and verify this practitioner reaches our standards. In the middle, a RAMP eligible practitioner who is a member of one of the many professional associations but sees no value in joining a register. And on the right, a massage therapist who has completed a short course in equine massage and a 2-hour webinar in laser therapy. They all look the same, but educational and subsequent qualifications of practitioners within the MSK industry varies enormously, resulting in a vast range of clinical competence and professional practice. This poses a risk to animal welfare and leaves the public vulnerable when choosing which MSK practitioner to employ. Attempts at gaining competent regulation and protection of titles have been ongoing since the mid-90s, until eventually the founders of RAMP were encouraged by DEFRA, following the review of the Minor Procedures Project, to provide an industry-led solution to the confusing and chaotic marketplace of animal MSK care. Part of the solution became RAMP, which was launched in 2016. The three professions are currently statutory regulated in human healthcare by the General Chiropractic Council, the General Osteopathic Council, and the Health and Care Professions Council, who operate under the superregulation of the Professional Standards Authority. Practitioners enjoy protection of title and work as first opinion practitioners in primary care, human health care. RAMP has adapted the regulatory processes in line with guidance from the PSA on good regulation and has developed at pace since its inception. This is mainly due to the generosity of the statutory regulatory bodies of the GCC, GOSC and HCPC. These organisations allowed RAMP to benefit from their development over the past 3 decades of statutory regulation, which RAMP has adapted to inform educational and professional standards in animal care. These now closely align with the tried and tested human healthcare industry model. So, what does it mean to be a RAMP registrant? Registrants must achieve RAMP entry educational standards. This is a minimum of BSc or level 6 qualification awarded by an Ofqual accredited recognised awarding organisation, which includes a minimum of 1,000 hours of practical education. That's in one of the 3 core professions. This is the equivalent level of education delivered to new graduates in human healthcare model. As long as these criteria are reached, RAMP both accept practitioners that have been trained in human sector to BSc level and then gone on to a postgraduate degree or MSc in an animal-based education, and those who have completed their entire education in an animal-based care. RAMP has developed a mapping system to ensure both routes reach our minimum criteria, and this system has been externally audited by the Office of Professional Qualifications as fit for purpose. In addition, RAMP practitioners must have professional indemnity and public liability insurance. Currently, because of the high professional standards set by RAMP and consequent perceived low risk by the underwriters, RAMP has secured good value block scheme covering registrants for claims of up to 5 million. However, registrants are free to find their own equivalent cover. And finally, on application to RAMP, the applicant makes a professional declaration that they will work within their scope of practice and the RAMP Code of Conduct. In short, all RAMP practitioners are expected to provide assessment-led, evidence-based care and to work within their scope of practice. They're expected to communicate effectively with all members of the multidisciplinary team to the benefit of the animal and work within the RAMP Professional Code of Conduct. Then, in order to maintain standards and a competent register, RAMP require annual renewal and the registrants must evidence 25 hours of relevant CPD each year with reflection. They must evidence an appropriate insurance renewal and they must update their professional declarations. An audit is completed of 5% of the annual renew submissions to ensure compliance with the annual requirements. To maintain integrity of the register and build public confidence, there needs to be a simple and transparent method to voice complaints regarding the professional practice of any registrant and RAMP itself. RAMP currently has an effective procedure in place that's in line with civil law and easily accessed on our website. As a voluntary regulatory body, if investigation of a complaint warrants action, RAMP can only recommend proportionate and scaled action to support and improve the practice of the registrant. Currently, the only sanction available is removal from the register, which has been implemented in 4 cases. Also, RAMP have taken action to facilitate infrastructure of the appropriate education to meet our criteria. RAMP currently work with 15 higher education institutions who deliver 20 programmes. Creating the clear and transparent criteria for RAMP entry has encouraged many of the UK HEIs delivering animal-based MSK programmes to work with us. We can either grant accredited educational provider status to establishments that wholly deliver programmes that meet criteria on graduation, and some programmes already met this standard when RAMP got involved, but some have developed their programmes to meet this criteria. Or we can grant recognised educational provider status to programmes that partially meet the criteria. These programmes have a place in the marketplace to deliver shorter courses that can be combined with programmes to meet criteria or to provide top-up education for some students. RAMP would wish to see the continuation in the development of quality training programmes on offer and for the programmes reaching RAMP standards to thrive. There seems little point in regulating the highly skilled practitioners and not for the rest of the industry. Although RAMP has given much thought to the regulation of the less skilled practitioners, the emphasis had to be on the evidencing of the gold standard levels of care delivered by RAMP registrants. However, should the resources become available, RAMP could use its current model and industry knowledge to facilitate an all-encompassing regulatory structure which would include these groups and encourage further educations to better levels of practice. Incentivising practitioners to take on further staged or top-up training will incentivise HEIs to produce an appropriate product. RAMP can evidence this approach is ongoing and so far successful. And finally, there are still many challenges. We need to make gold standard animal MSK care accessible for the public and to encourage them to look for RAMP registered practitioners. We need to encourage vets and other allied professionals to actively look for ramp-eligible practitioners and signpost owners to them. We must inspire all eligible practitioners to volunteer for regulation. And ongoing, we must work with the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons and DEFRA to find a sensible regulatory process and workable legislation to enable the whole MSK industry to thrive and deliver best practice to our animals. Thank you very much for listening, and please visit our website to find out some more.
Right, Hugh, come and join us. Yeah, that's fine. We now have a few minutes for questions, not very long, but I would encourage you all to think what questions you would like to ask. And I'd be happy to take questions from the room first. If you're going to ask a question, can I remind you to stand up and to say who you are or who you're representing? Do we have any questions in the room? If not, while you're thinking about it, these both sound like really exciting moves. I just wonder, part of the success will be in trying to make sure that the public demand a registered practitioner rather than going to the person they've always used. Have you thought about how you'll encourage that? Shall I go to you first, Hugh?
Yeah, that is certainly very, very important, and I completely agree with you. And we've got two tasks over the next few months. One is to encourage the practitioners to join our directory. The other is to encourage both professionals and the horse-owning public to choose somebody to go to the directory to find out who to use. In a sense, we've got to populate the directory enough before we can seriously start going to the horse owners, because they will need people in the directory. So the start of what we're doing in this first few months is very much going to be aimed at the fitting industry. And for what it's worth, we've discounted the fee for all the fitters to join by 50% in the first year, in recognition that the directory will only become particularly useful once it acquires a critical mass. How to influence horse owners to do anything, and that would pretty much be the theme for the whole of today, couldn't it be? Outside the narrow confines of the highly regulated, the elite sports bodies and so on. Even the terrific membership of the British Horse Society, we know perfectly well, scratches at the surface of the people who we know ride horses from the beta survey. So it is a huge problem. All I can say is we are convinced that the use of social media is the only way to go, or the big majority way to go, that we need to get into the chats and things around livery yards, around riding schools, and so on and so forth. A lot of people use all sorts of paraprofessionals and fitters at the moment, largely because somebody else in the riding school or the livery yard said, oh, Joe was absolutely fantastic with my pony. The fact that the problem may be completely different is neither here nor there. We have no golden bullet answer to the question. We are aware that it is a serious question.
Joe, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's drip drip with the equestrian world, like anything else. We just have to keep going at it. We would really like to encourage the practitioners to join, because some practitioners think that we were too inclusive and some think we're too exclusive. If we can get the practitioners to join, and then people can find these practitioners more easily, then I think that will go a long way with the public. But the other thing really is to get vets and other allied professionals. So, speak and work with the farriers, the saddlers, the instructors, behaviouralists, nutrition, everybody, and everybody singing from the same hymn sheet, and then it becomes the norm to have a regulated person or a registered person rather than somebody who, walks the dog down the road and quite likes rubbing ponies, which is what we're up against.
There are certainly a few of those around. I've got a couple of questions from Slido. The first is, How do we get in touch with the equine fitters? I can't find a website.
I had hoped that the website address was on my final screen, but it's just possible that it wasn't. It will certainly be on the proceedings from this conference today. It's www.equinefitters.org. Equinefittersdirectory.org. Thank you, Catherine. I know we've been through a few iterations of the possibility.
It's up there now.
There we are. So that's basically how it will be. And if you go on it today, you will find a holding page until the end of the month. And the holding page will tell you, please register, and we'll send you all the information you want in 2 or 3 weeks' time.
Great. And then one for Joe. How does RAMP register differ from AHPR, and how aware are equestrians and owners of the existence of RAMP?
So the first part of it is that there are 2 registers. There's RAMP and there's AHPR. We have a slightly different entry criteria, and AHPR also include a category for massage therapists and hydrotherapists. I think it's personally is crazy that there's 2 registers. We should be having 1 register, and we are in congenial conversation about that as we this year. So that's the first part of it. Sorry, what was the second part of it?
How aware are people?
How aware? I think they're becoming more aware of RAMP. We are, it harps back to the same answer. We are trying to make vets and allied professionals more aware of RAMP, and that is filtering down through to owners. But I think that's the next step. As say, we are a voluntary regulatory body. We don't have external funding, so we only rely on the funds that we get from our registrants. So again, that really inhibits the amount of advertising you can do and the amount of events you can go to. So we have been targeting on veterinary events this last year, and we will be thinking more about going out to the public now that we seem to be a much more mature organisation. So we have the answers for people now that we possibly didn't have a couple of years ago.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that brings us to a close with this session.